As children, we loved to go outside and play in the mud, especially after a big rain when the mud was thick and gooey. We would sit there in the mud and look at the bugs and put our fingers and our toes in the mud and let it squish through them. It was fun to be covered with mud. Sometimes we would actually make mud pies. I can't remember ever eating one of these, but I certainly remember selling them to the neighbors. They went for about 5 cents back then. Inflation had not yet attacked the mud pie business. At the end of the day, when we tried to come into the house, our mother would shriek. She would come out and not let us inside the door, ordering us to take off our clothes outside the house. Then she would turn the garden hose on us before we could step onto her clean carpet. It was fun to play in the mud. I wish more kids nowadays could go out and do that instead of sitting all day with those electronic devices, never looking around them and never looking up from the buttons. It's not really their fault, though. The award-winning scientist and environmentalist David Suzuki says, "We can't blame children for occupying themselves with Facebook rather than playing in the mud. Our society doesn't put a priority on connecting with nature. In fact, too often we tell them it's dirty and dangerous." Adults seem to abhor mud. Children, however, have not yet been taught the lie that mud and so much else in life is dirty and somehow evil. Children seem to recognize an innate affinity with the earth and the things of the earth. They regard mud as not only natural, but as an innate part of us. Perhaps they are the ones who have it right. Later on in life, after I had stopped playing in it, I came to realize something beautiful about mud. It was when I took a trip to the Holy Land. And there in the Dead Sea, I saw many people smearing themselves with Dead Sea mud, covering themselves head to toe with this gooey black substance. I was told the mud there is very healthy, and there was nothing more beneficial than a mud bath. Now, the very term mud bath may seem to be an oxymoron. How can you bathe in mud? Oh, but you can. The mud there is rich in minerals, so when you put it on and let those minerals seep through your pores and dry on you, it has restorative effects, nourishes the body, and even cures various ailments. After one of these mud baths, some of those people looked 30 years younger. Well, maybe 30 days younger. Some people with infirmities suddenly felt healthy. So I took off my clothes and smeared myself with mud. And look at the result. People were actually buying tubes of the mud to take home so they could have beauty and health treatments in their own home. I admit I did that too. Since that time, I have taken mud baths in the most remote corners of the world, from Turkey to the islands of the Caribbean, and I always found it to be very therapeutic. When you are there with everybody covered with mud, nobody looks dirty. Everyone looks the same. Jesus tells us the story of the mustard seed. It is the tiniest of seeds, we are told, but it grows into the largest of trees. How does that mustard seed do that? The seed has to go into the mud in order to grow. Mud is very important. Isn't it during the muddy times of life that we too grow? Goldie Hawn wrote a memoir called A Lotus Grows in the Mud. She writes, "The lotus is the most beautiful flower whose petals open one by one. But it will only grow in the mud. In order to grow and gain wisdom, first you must have the mud, the obstacles of life and its suffering. The mud speaks of the common ground that humans share, no matter what our station in life. Whether we have it all or we have nothing, we are all faced with the same obstacles: sadness, loss, illness, dying, and death. If we are to strive as human beings to gain more wisdom, more kindness, and more compassion, we must have the intention to grow as a lotus and open each petal one by one." None of us likes to feel like we are in the mud. None of us likes those dark moments of our lives. None of us likes those times when we feel pain or anguish or fear. But those are precisely the times when we, like the mustard seed, grow. We all need the mud. We were formed out of mud. No wonder, then, that we can grow only when in the mud. When all is going well in life, when we are comfortable and clean and well off and well fed, there is no growth. We are content and we stagnate. It is when we go through difficult periods, times of loss and sorrow, pain and suffering, when we seem to have been dropped into the mud, it is only then that we, like the mustard seed, like the lotus flower, can truly grow. One of America's greatest writers, Nathaniel Hawthorne, wrote, "Life is made up of marble and mud." Where do we look for God? Most adults tend to see God in the marble, in the grand temples, in the bright moments and grandiose things of life. Let us find God not only in the marble, but also in the mud. For it is there that we are nourished. It is there that we grow. It is precisely there, in the depths of the dark, dreaded, healing mud, that we find ourselves.